welcome or welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am happy to say that we're getting back in the swing of finishing series I am in the middle of. So currently I have about 38 series that I am in the middle of. I have in progress. I have 17 where I am caught up, which basically means that, I've read everything the author has put out so far. And then I have 43 series not started. So what that essentially means is I own at least one of the books, which means it's on my TBR. So I kind of consider it part of the problem because, if I own it, I will eventually read it. I will eventually be in the middle of it, yada, yada. But I will say those numbers, for the most part, are much better than when we started this series. And I honestly have to say these are probably my favorite videos to film, actually. I really love blitzing through series, and part of me is thinking maybe I should just do videos where I read a whole series in one sitting, or at least in one video, not one sitting. I don't, there's some series, but it's definitely not possible. But, I kind of like just binging a series. So maybe we should, start a separate side hustle of that. I don't know. But anyway, back to this agenda. So in this video, I'm going to be completing a duology and I'm going to be getting caught up on a series, which I'm very, very excited about. The first book we're going to be reading, Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the sequel to Six of Crows. This is a very beloved duology. I enjoyed the first book so very much. It was in my 24-hour readathon, and it was the first book I read, and I gave it 5 stars, and I stand by that. It had nothing to do with the fact that I was very loopy by the end. But I'm very excited for this read. I am excited to see what happens between Kaz and Inej. I'm very excited to see what's going on with Messias and Nina, the whole 9 yards. I am here for the gang. I am excited for more hijinks. So that is the first book I will be reading for this video. And then I'm going to be picking up The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This is the kind of sort of sequel to The Spell Shop. I actually don't know what she's calling this whole series, but they're kind of interconnected standalone. So they're all set in the same world, in the same kind of time frame. In fact, Kaz, wait, do we have Kaz and Kaz? Did I not realize this? Oh, I feel like an idiot now. Was it Kaz or... I feel like his name was Kaz. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have Kaz with a K and Kaz with a C. And now I kind of feel like an idiot for not figuring this out sooner. But anyway, tangent aside, so these are kind of interconnected standalones almost. And this book follows Tirlu, who was Kaz's creator. If you've read the first book, The Spell Shop, Kaz is the sentient spider plant in that book. So I'm very excited for both of these. I honestly think these could have both ended up in a reading 5-star predictions video. So given what I gave their predecessors, so I am very excited about this video, and I will catch up with you when I have some thoughts on my first read. I'm not sure which book I'm starting with, but I will let you know my thoughts on it when I get there. So I decided to start with Crooked Kingdom because I was so intrigued by the way Six of Crows ended, and I've kind of been dying to find out the resolution of this storyline. And so I figured, why not? Why not start here? But I am a little over halfway, and I'm having some thoughts. First of all, this is lining up to be another 5-star read. Now I understand why everybody raves about this duology. I mean, the first book was amazing, 5 stars, but I did not realize, I guess, sometimes people really hype up the first book and then the second book or the third book does not live up to the hype. For example, Once Upon a Broken Heart, everybody likes the first book, loves the second book, and is deeply let down by the third book. So sometimes, the finale of something just isn't as great as you're hoping. But in this case, so good. So good. This is on track to be another 5-star read for me, but in an effort to keep this from getting spoilery, I'm going to try and speak about this in very broad strokes. So we start this book with a mission, and then it kind of evolves from there, of course. So, we're at the point, I had a feeling because, like they were plotting and it was like all coming together beautifully. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And then they're like, we're halfway through and they're like, okay, we're executing it. And I'm like, if we're halfway through, this is not going to go the way they plan. And of course, I am at the point where, crap has hit the fan. So I will say the one thing that I do not love about this book is that I feel like I'm not necessarily connected to Kaz's like vendetta against Pekka Rollins. I mean, I completely understand it, but I'm not emotionally connected. And I think it's because we never had a chance to get to know Jordy. And so he's kind of like an abstract. Like I realize that if somebody like had to go at my sister, I would hunt them to the ends of this earth. So I get it from like a sibling perspective and like from a human perspective, but I'm not necessarily like, Pekka Rollins is the worst person in the world. I also wonder, like, Kaz hasn't brought it up yet, and I'm wondering if it comes up later, but there were other people kind of involved in scamming them when they were children, so maybe, there are other people that are, on his list, so to speak, sort of like Arya Stark's list. And Pekka's just kind of the peaks, like, sort of like Cersei was Arya's peak, I think. I haven't watched the series, but like I said in previous videos, if you spend any amount of time on YouTube, specifically YouTube Shorts, at some point you realize that you kind of know most of the plot. But for characters that we have met and we do love, I'm kind of living for all of this. I'm like, I appreciate the fact that a lot of these characters are very like emotionally intelligent and are like self-aware. I will say the one exception to that is Jesper. I think that he has got a lot of work to do on himself. Although I think Waylon is a pretty good candidate to help him with that. So I'm enjoying whatever those two have going on. And as always, enjoying what like Nina and Matthias have going on. The whole bickering, love, yada, yada, yada. I am here for that. Obviously, have no idea where Kaz and Inej are going at this point, but, I was very much sat for that in the first book. So I am, like I said, I'm enjoying the plot. I'm enjoying the character development and the kind of self-awareness we're getting. We get introduced to Jesper's father, and it's kind of nice to see like where he's coming from. I'm also, I'm always so excited to like listen to these guys plot and like see them put their plans in motion, because Kaz is very much like, if the door closes in front of you, then you find another way out. And so they've had quite a few doors slammed in their faces, and yet they are still kicking. Everybody's still, in reasonably good health. And, they're still fighting to win, their personal dreams and their, vendettas. So I'm here for this. I feel like this update was a whole lot of nothing, but I also feel like it's very hard to like say more without getting like very specific about what's actually happening in this book, which kind of constitutes a spoiler. Like everything in this book at this point is a spoiler. Anyway. So like I said, I'm here for it. I am kind of surprised that the unwitting party, like the unwitting person in their party, the person who's added to their party at the end of, the last book, I'm surprised that he has not taken on more of like a role, so to speak. Maybe that'll change in the second half of this book because he's still very hotly contested by literally every, party of power in this universe. But I'm kind of surprised he's very much taken a backseat. I'm also surprised at like the level of interpretation the group is having to do for him, just because, I feel like he knew more in the first book than he's letting on now. I don't know. So I'm excited to see where this is going. I'm excited to see what plan B, C, D, E is going to be, because clearly plan A just went left. So I will catch up with you when I have finished this book. All right, so I have officially finished Crooked Kingdom, and I needed a minute before I talk to you guys about this book. First of all, 5 stars. Fabulous. honestly, this is kind of like a 6-star duology, Roman Empire kind of duology. I get the hype now. The reason I don't sound more excited about this is honestly, as fitting as the ending was this, like truly, I feel like the way it ended was kind of perfect. My heart kind of got crushed. I didn't quite cry, I don't think, but I don't know. I like me some happy endings. Like I'm here for and they lived happily ever and ever and ever after. And so when, you know, things don't go that way for everybody, sometimes it, like when you're really invested emotionally in the characters, it really freaking hurts. And like this hurts. Thank you for the emotional trauma, Miss Bardugo. Thanks. Anyway, so like I said, the ending I think was very fitting for every character, for where they are, like emotionally, for what they were trying to achieve. Like I think that this was probably one of the most well-written endings I have ever read. But like I said, there was a part of it that was kind of soul-crushing. I am very happy that the hijinks and shenanigans continued. Like as much as you don't want to see, you know, your characters take an L, sometimes when they take an L, it means that something better comes along down the line. And I feel like that's what happened in this book. You know, we got better plotting and all that good stuff. But, oh, how should I put this? Sorry, I'm still like kind of wrecked. So I need to like figure out how to put this. I feel like for some of the characters, there's still definitely like room for growth and room for character development, which could result in like another book. So, like for example, if Leigh Bardugo wrote a book for Jesper, I would read that in a heartbeat. And honestly, there is definitely room for Jess to get his own book. I know that King of Scars and Rule of Wolves is about Nikolai. So I'm like, I'm not really all that interested in that, to be honest. I never like got invested in him in either persona. So I don't know if I will be reading those books, probably eventually, just because I've read everything else in the Grishaverse, but it's not high on my priority list. But yeah, I feel like everybody kind of got a fitting ending for, you know, their karma. So I feel like I'm doing a terrible job, but like I don't want to, you know, I was talking up all like the couples, but like now if I say anything about the couples, it spoils what happens in the book. Oh Lord. Okay. So anyway, we're just gonna leave it at that. This might be the world's worst reading vlog so far, and I'm so sorry if it is. Just know that I'm a little emotionally messed up right now. So on that note, this is kind of going to be the end of my reading day. I know that I read this book all in one day. Honestly, I have enough time that I was planning on going into Enchanted Greenhouse. But I need a break. So I will probably see you tomorrow night with that book. But like I said, 5 stars, emotionally traumatizing. All right, so I am literally halfway through this book, like perfectly halfway through this book, and I have quite a few thoughts to share with you guys about it. So first of all, I think I said in the intro what this was about, but this book follows Terelu, who is Kaz's creator. If you've read The Spell Shop, Kaz is the sentient spider plant sidekick in that book. And Terelu is the librarian who created him. So in this world, you have to be a like sorcerer that's like, acknowledged by the government in order to be using magic. And so when Terelu created Kaz, she broke the rules. And so we start this book with her sentencing for her crime, so to speak. And she is sentenced to be made a statue to essentially make an example of her. They don't want people to feel like she got off easy, and so therefore it's like worth trying to do this and like slide under the radar. So they turn her into a wooden statue and place her in the library. But if you're familiar with the events of the first book, there is a point where the library burns, and somehow, some way, her statue is moved out of the library. So I don't know if it was moved out. We haven't like gotten a bunch of information on that. So I don't know if she was moved out because of the fire, before the fire, like any of that. But what we do know is that she, and this is not really a spoiler because it's on the back of the book and it's in the first 2 chapters. What we do know is that she wakes up on an unfamiliar island. And then she is alone by herself when she wakes up, and she starts wandering around trying to figure out who unfroze her and all of this stuff, and ends up in like a complex of these really, really cool, really, really unique greenhouses. First of all, first thought, this is so winter coded. So if you have any interest in this book and you want to pick it up in a very like seasonally apropos time, pick this up during winter. I'm not mad reading this in the fall, that like whatsoever, but I definitely think it would hit harder if I was reading it during wintertime. Secondly, and I said this about the female main character in the first book in The Spell Shop, and I think that I don't know if this is just how I feel about Sarah Beth Durst's like female protagonists or what, but I found Terelu at the beginning of this book really, really annoying. Like I don't know if it's like the naivete, so to speak, but like when she first is unfrozen and she realizes she's by herself, she has like a whole moment about like, why didn't someone like leave a note on her being like, I'll be right back, or she should be taken inside and like given a hot chocolate or whatever. Like it's very, for the circumstances that she's in, it's like very discombobulated almost. And I found that kind of naivete in the first couple chapters really annoying. And I did actually initially start reading this or listening to this via audiobook because I wanted to like get some stuff done around my apartment. And I could not do it. I was finding myself like hating the book because I couldn't stand like, I don't know how she was read or how she was coming across when read out loud. I don't know how to put it, but like it was not for me. I ended up restarting the book and switching to the physical copy, and this has been going so much better. Essentially, it comes out that she was like revived by the caretaker for the greenhouses because he wrote to the Capitol, to the library, asking for assistance because these greenhouses are dying, and there's like almost 200 of them, and they hold like all sorts of things, fruits, vegetables, exotic plants, like medicinal herbs that are very rare, all this stuff. And the sorcerer who created the greenhouses has passed, and so he's been trying to keep up with all these greenhouses by himself, but he's not a magician and the magic is now failing. So he writes to the Capitol seeking aid, and apparently they decide to send him Terelu. And so there's a whole back and forth about like whether or not she will actually be useful, considering she's not really a magician. She just succeeded in making a spider plant sentient, and all of this mess. And the gardener is like kind of grumpy, but more in like a socially awkward way. Like he doesn't know what to do with company. His family used to maintain these greenhouses, and they've all kind of like moved out to other islands to do different things as the greenhouses have failed, and as the like former like the creator of the greenhouses got more and more paranoid and like difficult to live with. So he kind of was the only one who survived like the old magician's like craziness at the end of his life. And so he's kind of like a bit like stranger danger-ish about Terelu. But what's funny is everything else on the island for the most part seems to take to her, like the winged cat. There ends up being at some point, I don't know if that's a spoiler. It's just, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to put a timestamp up if you want to skip it, just on the off chance that you find it spoiler-ish. But there ends up being more sentient plants, which I think is one of the big reasons why she was sent to the island, is because obviously she created Kaz, and so, there's a crew of sentient plants that she ends up helping revive at one point. Spoiler over. So I am very much enjoying this. I'm enjoying the vibe. I Sarah Beth Durst writes the most beautiful worlds, and like the imagery that I've got in my head, like reading this story and like imagining all these greenhouses is beautiful, amazing, gorgeous. Like I said, Terelu is no longer annoying me, which is great. I really liked the male main character in this book. In the spell shop, the male lead is like very much down bad from the beginning. This guy is like much more like I don't know about you, but like you could be good for something I care about, so I'm gonna tolerate you. And then he starts to realize like she's a genuinely good person, and he starts, being drawn to her. So I am thoroughly enjoying this. This will not be a 5-star read just because, like I said, she annoyed the ever-loving crap out of me in the first, like, a couple chapters of this book. And I would love to, like, go back to listening to this on audiobook, but I'm afraid that it will negatively impact my opinion of the book. So we're sticking to the physical copy for now. But like I said, I've got like 180 some odd pages left. So I will catch up with you guys when I am done. But suffice it to say that this has been a really good, like, catching up on series. I'm in the middle of a vlog because, we read Crooked Kingdom. It was amazing. Now we're reading this book, and I am thoroughly enjoying it now that I'm reading the physical copy. So see you guys in a little bit. So I have been editing what footage I have for this vlog thus far this evening, and come to realize that I have very little to no B-roll for this vlog. So sorry if you're just getting clip after clip of me yapping, but it kind of is what it is at this point. I don't want to like go back and fake footage, so you're just kind of getting clip after clip after clip of me just blah, 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 blah. So with that being said, one more clip of me running my mouth. I have finished The Enchanted Greenhouse, and I have feelings. I have feelings, positive ones, but it's kind of an interesting, I've had like a very interesting reaction to this book, especially compared to the first book in the series, or the interconnected standalone, whatever. I rated the Spell Shop, I think 4.5 stars. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 4.5 stars. I remember it couldn't have been a 5 because I had a very strong distaste for a storyline that was brought in towards the end. But other than that, I liked the story quite a bit. I like this story as a whole almost better, but I think I'm going to give it 4 stars and it's just kind of an odd place to be in. I don't know if I read the Spell Shop now, it would be less, or if I just found some aspects, I think, of the first book more compelling than this one, but I enjoyed the overall vibe of this one more. Like the imagery, the world, the complex of greenhouses, and like all the unique environments in each greenhouse, and just everything was amazing. I think, as I said previously, Sarah Beth Durst writes the most beautiful worlds. Obviously, we're all in the same universe, in the same world, in the same country, technically speaking, but all these islands are kind of like, worlds unto themselves. And so I really, really enjoyed the world that she brought us in this one. Some other things I enjoyed, I really liked the romance. I felt like it was a much more adult romance than the previous book, in the sense of Terelu and Yarrow, who's the male lead, are much more in touch with kind of their personal shortcomings. Obviously, like I said, she kind of has felt like neglected, and he has kind of felt abandoned. Like his family, his entire family, extended aunts, uncles, cousins, used to all be gardeners on this island for these greenhouses for this sorcerer. And they kind of all slowly, one by one, 2 by 2, abandoned ship until it was just him and his dad. And then eventually his dad left as well. His dad was kind of forced to leave due to illness, but then chose to stay away. And so he's kind of dealt with like abandonment issues. And the two of them are both very aware of this, and like very aware that this could affect their relationship. I do think it's a little insta-lovey. Like they acknowledge that they have a physical attraction pretty quickly. But there's like a kind of a, she doesn't feel that he could possibly feel that way about her. And like, he seems to be trying to be respectful. I think it's more so, he seemed to switch up quite a bit. He is very like introverted and has been isolated for quite some time, so he's not really a people person. And she is, you know, like they're very much black cat, golden retriever energy. And I think he was just so off put by her in the beginning that when he started to like come around to her presence and his attraction to her, that it kind of seemed sudden. But I would imagine if we had gotten his perspective, it wouldn't be. This is not dual perspective, but it would. I kind of wish it was. I kind of wish that we had gotten dual perspectives for both the spell shop and the Enchanted Greenhouse, but that's just my personal preference. Some things that like I didn't necessarily love. I felt like the solution to the like overarching issue of like why the greenhouses were failing was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. And like not in it made sense for the storyline, like, and it made sense for like the motivations of like the creator of the greenhouses. So it was very much in line with like the characters' motivations and personalities, but I found it kind of underwhelming. And I got really excited when it was suggested at one point that there might be like a malicious reason why the greenhouses are failing. And then it was pretty much like immediately dismissed within like 20 pages. And I was kind of like, oh, that would have been like a much more compelling storyline to me personally. This is a cozy fantasy. There aren't meant to be huge stakes. I just feel like the stakes were higher in the spell shop in a way. And you know, I don't mind low stakes, but I kind of wish that the solution had been a little bit more wabam, you know? So this is going to be a 4-star read, but I very much enjoyed it and I will keep reading these books. I do believe we've already met the main character in the next book. There's a seafarer called Marin, short for Mariner, which, as she points out in herself in this book, is a little nail on the head. But the next book, the title I believe is Sea of Charms. So I think that all quite kind of lines up. She has a tendency to introduce, who we're getting next in your current read. So that brings us to the end of this video. I think this was quite a good success. We had Crooked Kingdom, which was a 5-star all-time favorite read. I now completely understand why everybody raves about the Six of Crows duology, and I am happy I've read it, and kind of sad that I can't read it again for the first time. You know what I mean? And then, of course, this was a 4-star read, which I deeply enjoyed, and I will be continuing on with the series. But happily for now, I am caught up. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to stick around, please subscribe. Either way, I really appreciate you joining me. Bye!